you can either stand up and take that small step forward. You don't have to know where you're going. You don't have to have the perfect plan. You don't have to know what tomorrow holds. But you can either get up and take that small step, or you're going to sit at that kitchen counter for the rest of your life. And now, years later, and one of my favorite lines in the book, I'm thankful that I pushed through those hard times, and I realized, and I truly believe in now, that the smallest of steps eventually completes the grandest of journeys.
That's such a poignant perspective to have. And it's, I often talk about the fact that the first step is the hardest one. In many situations, like the first step is the hardest one. And what I like about what you bring to that statement is, like, it doesn't matter how big that step is, or more important, how small that step is. You gotta do something. You gotta move in the right direction. Here's one of the things you say, kind of bringing this home. At some point, everyone will face a rock bottom moment when the past looms too large to overcome and a hopeful future seems too far out to imagine. I mean, just think about that right there. There's times that you're going to face where the past is too much and the future seems too far away, too far out there. You go on. It's difficult to prepare yourself for that moment because it's impossible to know what will trigger it. It may be a major setback that knocks you to the ground, or it could be something so seemingly minor and innocuous, like trying to eat a bowl of cereal, which is what you went through. The point is, you can't really do much ahead of time to prevent that moment from happening. You might not even be able to brace yourself for the impact. All you can do is commit yourself to surviving for another day and recognizing that you can't change what is behind you, only what lies ahead. You may even wonder if it's possible to move on, and it might not be without professional guidance to help you process everything that your past represents. It's not a process that can be rushed. You have to be honest with yourself as to whether or not it's time to let go of the past. Maybe the answer is not yet, and that's okay, but at some point you have to be willing to say, from this day forward, I am choosing to live. Too often we fall into the trap of thinking we need to have everything figured out before we act. You don't have to have a roadmap before you set out. You don't even have to know what direction you're traveling. You just have to be willing to move and leave the past behind. Every obstacle I took on had a whole new significance, and every time I conquered one, I took on new significance too. I gained significance as someone who fought to live and was succeeding. I gained significance as a combat survivor who is doing more than just surviving. I gained significance as someone who refused to let fear make his choices for him. I gained significance as someone who reclaimed his life unapologetically. And even if that significance was only apparent to me and no one else, it changed who I was in my own eyes and in my own mind. My injuries will not define my life. I will. And the greatest power I have, that any of us has, is the power to make that choice. So, once again, it is about taking control over what choices you make. Deciding to move forward. Yeah. And again, it's one thing when somebody says that stuff that, their big challenge was who knows what big challenge they had, but to hear it coming from you who's literally been dead and come back and suffered through the recovery process. It's just, if you can say that, we can all say that.
The worst is when you get whether a book or some motivator out there telling you, a whole spreadsheet of things you need to do, and they haven't done it themselves. I lived, learned, and proved and completed the lessons that I am teaching.